Well, a very good morning, afternoon, or indeed a very good evening, wherever this video finds you. An absolute pleasure to be working alongside you and your chosen Bayleys sales and marketing agent as we work towards together through to that auction day and indeed talking about that particular reserve price. Now, normally if we were sitting in front of each other, I would simply ask you, do you have any experience in the auction room, either selling or buying, or either sitting alongside a friend? And I'm sure there would be a variation of those experiences, but equally at this juncture, I would also ask if it's okay and your permission to talk through some of the scenarios that might occur on auction day and leading up to it. Now, a couple of scenarios that might occur on auction day as we work through it. Now, it's vital as we work through it that we are concise about what we're talking through. So leading up to auction day, we'll be working alongside all of those agents. I'll be working through those agents alongside them as we talk through the campaign. And a couple of days prior to the auction, we'll need to set that reserve. And also we'll know all of the information, all of the buyers that have come through, and all of that ever important feedback. And as we set our strategy for maximising your most valuable asset on auction day, we will have every piece of the puzzle right there in front of us. As we lead up to auction day, we will set an order of sale, and regardless of where we are positioned in that order of sale, I will go through the introduction, the legal description, and the property description. At that stage, I will simply call for an opening bid. Usually this is where human nature might play its role. Buyers are nervous in the room, you'll be nervous in the room, and agents in particular equally as nervous, as everybody is trying to do the very, very best for you on the day. Now, needless to say, as buyers are nervous, don't fret. Human nature takes its role. We'll give ample time for those buyers to actually engage. Ideally, we'll get a live bid from the floor, and that is where we would hopefully get that natural bidding sequence to occur, buyer against buyer, competing, so that we get this natural flow and natural rhythm that occurs leading up to, hopefully, to the reserve price and indeed above. Now, a key point in this particular scenario is that your reserve price is completely confidential. If we have a live bidding sequence that occurs, we get to your reserve, the bidding is still strong. You may have seen that either through experience or by watching, and we usurp that reserve price. Confidentiality in your reserve is key. Now, the bidding sequence hopefully flows through beyond that reserve price, and we won't start talking about putting the property on the market until we start to see those bids slow down. For example, if we had a reserve set at $1 million, we had a natural bidding sequence that was confident, was bidding in 50s right through to potentially 1.1. The bidding started to slow down to 20s, from 50s down to 10s. We start to get to the 150, potentially 1.2. I would only ever ask for instructions from our sales and marketing agent and from yourselves to put the property on the market until we started to see that bidding slow down. Now, potentially we'd get that authority from yourselves and the agent, announce the property on the market, and with any luck we can chase that premium, that absolute premium where the bidding buyer against buyer are still competing. They know that they're bidding against each other. We haven't had time for the auction to slow down. They haven't had time to stop and think, am I overpaying? They're still competing against that buyer, and ever so importantly, they know the property is on the market. They are bidding for the keys for ownership. With any luck, we have that premium, that lift. It might be 5, might be 10, it may go on. We simply do not know. But at that stage, with any luck, we'll call it 3 times. If the bidding has stopped at that stage, we're above reserve, we're on the market, and we sell under the hammer, which is always the most desirable scenario that we are always hoping to achieve. Now, of course, there are several other scenarios which I'd like to run through, but that is the scenario we're always aiming for, and ever so important to cornerstone here that your reserve is completely confidential in all of those scenarios. Second stage scenario that we might occur is we have a bidding sequence which is either announced when I call for that opening bid, whether I've started the bidding. Now, I need to talk about this scenario as well. I have the ability to bid on your behalf. That is simply called a vendor bid. And if I've called for that opening bid, and as I talked about earlier, human nature, everybody's a touch nervous, we don't get that live bid from the floor, then I can bid on your behalf. It's simply called the vendor bid, and I'm simply saying the property is not for sale at that figure. So don't be surprised if that figure is well below where you've set your reserve. I'm simply saying not for sale at this figure and trying to engage the buyers to continue in that natural bidding sequence. So in the second type of scenario, if I've called for that opening bid, whether I've started with a vendor bid or we get a live bid from the floor, the bidding sequence ensues. It continues to a stage where we get natural bidding, where the strong starts to slow down and it stops below where you've set that reserve price. I'm simply obliged at that stage to pause and have a conversation with that top bidder outside of the room to see if we can't get them over the line or where they need to be. Now, once again, I will have that conversation out of the room in privacy. I will be your conduit, and I'll be talking to those buyers, but the key point, once again, confidentiality supreme of your reserve price. I won't be disclosing where that level is, always trying to usurp or exceed those expectations. Had many results when in those situations where we've been able to do that. But there are occasions where buyers will simply say, Justin, I'm not going to pay a cent more. At that stage, you are in complete control. I'll come to you with that figure and simply say, this is the best we can do, cash unconditionally today. And then I must reiterate to you, you are in complete control from this point on. If you say, Justin, we need to work a little harder, I'm happy to go back and talk to those buyers once again. But a key point here is your reserve is not set in stone. If we get to a point where we've got the best we can from those particular buyers, the best cash unconditional on the day through competition or otherwise, then you have the control or the power to actually alter that reserve price and say, Justin, hey, look, this is enough for us to be able to move on. At that stage, if you've signed or amended that reserve price, we go back to those buyers, we convey acceptance, and would bring the property back into the room and announce we are on the market and selling. Now, there are several occasions where once we go back into the room that we can see additional bidding. This is where buyers or the underbidders have sat in the room and thought about where they're at. They see the figure that comes back in. It's on the market once again, so again, buyers know they're bidding for the keys. We may see an additional premium onwards from where we had signed or amended that reserve from on the market. We can't promise that, so you still need to be absolutely comfortable about where you've amended that reserve price to, because if we don't receive additional bidding, we will be selling under the hammer after I've called that 3 times. With any luck, though, we might get additional bidding, and that's what we call the premium, where you've signed off cash unconditional, which is acceptable to yourselves, but we might see an additional flurry. It might be a 10, a 15, a 20. We just do not know. But once again, I do reiterate, you are in complete control. Confidentiality of that reserve price maintains, and with any luck, we will sell under the hammer in this particular scenario once again. When it comes to setting the reserve, I'm sure you've had many, many sleepless nights. This is very normal and a normal consideration from where we're trying to set a level for what is your most valuable asset. We completely understand this, but there is some assistance that we can offer right throughout the process. When working alongside each and every one of the agents, we'll see vendor reporting. We'll have all of the feedback coming through from buyers who have come through, viewed. They'll offer their pros, the cons, and with any luck, we'll get some feedback on value. Now, sometimes the best value to consider when looking at the pattern that forms is from buyers who have come through the property and said to Mr. and Mrs. Agent, hey, look, not for us. Based on what we've seen, we think the property sits at this level. Now, you'll see a pattern start to form if we've got multiple buyers through who have ruled it out. I'd urge you to start looking at that feedback, which gives you some guidance as to where we can set that reserve price. Now, the reserve price is very important, obviously. It's at a level where you are happy to sell. At this particular juncture, though, I'd always set you some homework. Now, that homework is to start considering the what-if scenarios. So, Justin, I'm happy to sell at this particular figure. For example, if it's $1 million on the nose, I'd be happy to sell at that figure, release the keys, release the ownership to those new buyers. Then my homework for you, to be safe and comfortable to do overnight or prior to the auction in the comfort of your own home, is to start thinking about what if. What if the bidding only gets to 800? What if we pause, as we described in that second scenario, and I've spoken to that top bidder after competing against the market, and I can only get them to 850,000. What if I can only get them to 900,000? You need to be confident and comfortable having those conversations in the privacy of your own home, so that I'm not putting undue pressure on you on auction day. That's not what we're here to do. We're here to put pressure on the buyers after they've been competing against each other for your property. So once you've done that homework, I think it's absolutely essential that you do have those conversations so that we can actually put that pen to paper when it comes to setting that reserve, which is the figure at which we would urge you to start thinking about those what-if scenarios. As we've discussed, those are the two scenarios that may occur. There is a potential third scenario that can occur on auction day. It is very unlikely with a property which is home-owned, but it can eventuate. So I always like to talk about a no surprises campaign, which is obviously the best campaign that our sales and marketing agents can run, so that you're above all of the knowledge and over and across everything that happens throughout the campaign. There are scenarios where we'd end up with buyers in the auction room. They've signed confirmation that they will attend. They even signed variations to contracts with your acceptance, of course. And they would appear on auction day, and for whatever reason, they choose not to bid at all. Now, this is unusual, but it can occur. I like to cover it off, simply so that you don't come out of the auction room and say, Justin, what happened to scenario 1 and 2? Because we had bidders in the room, and for whatever reason, they choose not to engage. Now, for that, I usually end up talking to myself for a good couple of minutes. Our sales and marketing agents run around the room trying to figure out what exactly and why exactly these buyers aren't engaging. But at the end of the day, if I don't get engagement at all, I'm simply left with no other alternative but to pass the property in. At that stage, we will find out exactly what occurred with those particular buyers, but rest assured, many of our best agents working at Bayleys will be having conversations prior to leading up to auction with all of our buyers with strategies, figuring out exactly where they're placed, exactly as we can find where they are on price, and tutoring them as to how to perform in an auction room. So with any luck, we won't engage or encounter that particular scenario, but hopefully you have been schooled on this particular scenario so that it won't be a surprise if it does occur. Fantastic. With any luck, that has given you some insight as to what may occur on auction day. I'm more than happy to take phone calls throughout the campaign, so rest assured my number is available. I'll be working closely alongside those sales and marketing agents right throughout the process. All of our strategies come under the umbrella of maximising the value of your most valuable asset. So with any luck, we'll set a strategy. Look forward to meeting you in person and look forward to selling under the hammer come auction day with you both.